So, tribology, yesterday class I told that it is not a new subject. It was used in the very long back. And this tribology is just because of necessary. So, necessary is the mother of invention. We all know that necessary is the mother of all invention. So, any invention, it is just due to because of a necessary. So, ಅದು ನಮಗೆ ತುಂಬ necessary ಇರುತ್ತೆ. That's why we have to go and get that things. Example, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು necessary things, or if you want to necessarily pass the subject, ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀರ ಅವಾಗ? If you want to pass the subject, so you are going to get all the materials and sit and study, and anyhow you will get the pass in that subject, correct? So that is what the necessary. If necessary is there, definitely we are going to get by any means. Same thing, tribology is necessary at that time. So it's a fact of human were aware of as early as, just like a Neolithic age. You know Neolithic age, it's a between 4000 to 1800 BC. That age is called as Neolithic age. At that age, commonly we can see the Egyptians and Sumerians. Sumerians and Egyptians were present at that time. Okay, that age is called as Neolithic age. So at that time they were used this tribology not as a subject, but as a concept. They don't know it's a tribology. They just use the concept of this tribology to reduce the friction. To reduce the friction, they just used lubricants and lubrication process. The lubrication and lubricant process is a main component of tribology nowadays, but at that time they don't know it is a tribology. They just simply used this as concept. You can observe the figure, the first figure and the second figure. They carry the big monuments and big statues from one place to another place. Nowadays, if you want to carry something, some huge component, means you are using JCB or cranes. Correct? Correct, Andrapa? So in the building construction or in the temple construction, we commonly observe that if you want to carry a big monuments, statues or big stone or a big thing, you just use cranes and easily place from one place to another place. But in the BC, they don't have any cranes or JCBs. They manually, they have to transport from one place to another place. Correct? So at that time, they are using some, you can observe this here in the first slide. See, it's a monument or a statue. It is placed on the wooden a big wooden log. Okay, on that they placed some small stones just to roll on that. One side they're pulling. Okay, so because of that pulling force, and it will start rolling on the stones, and it starts moving from one point to another point. But they encounter a lot of frictions because the road surface is also very rough. The stones is also not smooth. So there is a lot of friction between the road and stones. To avoid that, they are using lubricants. Lubricants or lubrication process, it is a one technique. The technique they are used and reduce the friction, and easily they carry from one place to another place. That's why nowadays we can see the Egyptian pyramids. The pyramids are a huge constructions. They are already constructed in the BCs, 400 BC to 1800 BC. In between those age, they constructed that Egypt pyramids. Those pyramids are they are made by a huge stone, and the stones are carried from some other place to that exact place by using this technique. Okay, so by observing this, we can proudly say that tribology is a very old knowledge which aware of our ancient people. It's a one simple example. And the next examples are, we can see that a moving parts, a machine parts that shows remarkable similarities nowadays what we are using. Okay, so this is the old civilians, Hindu and Mohenjo-daro civilians. They used these moving parts and some of the small machines. Okay, and those machines nowadays they are very similar to what the machines now we are using. It is also one remarkable step towards the tribology, and also a most effective evidence that the tribology were used in earlier ancient peoples. And next come to the history in the 50th century. In the 50th century, that is what in the 1452 and 1519, between that century, the Vinci, he introduced for the first time the concept of coefficient of friction as a ratio of the frictional force to the normal force. Da Vinci is the first. He introduced the concept of not a tribology, but he introduced the concept of coefficient of friction as the ratio of frictional force to the normal force or a load. And also he gives laws of governing the motion of the rectangular block sliding over the flat surface. First, he studied a tribology as an experiment on a surface, on the surface, a rectangular block sliding over the surface. So, one surface is sliding over another surface, definitely there is a friction, and the friction induces the coefficient of friction. That is what he discovered and made his innovation. He is the first person who discuss on the tribology. Next, in the 1999, a French scientist, Amanotos, discovers the laws of friction from the Leander Vinci. Next, in the 1969, one of the French scientists, he rediscovered whatever the discovered by the Vinci. He rediscovered his equations, the laws of friction, after study the dry sliding between the two flat surfaces. And next, in 1985, in the 1785, the Charles Agustin, we already know that, is one of the a famous scientist who made a lot of contribution to the tribology. In 1785, the French, one more scientist called Charles Agustin Coulomb, that is what commonly called as a Coulomb theory, verified the observation of a previous two scientist discoveries and said that friction force is independent of velocity. One motion starts, and also made a clear distinction between the static friction and kinetic friction. He made a clear distinguish between static friction, and the kinetic friction. And the later, the concept of tribology were invented in the year of 1969. In the 1969, the actual invention of tribology were coming to picture. That is the investigation of committee by the England and UK. England and UK made a committee against the tribology and made made a lot of inventions, and at that time actual the subject is coming to picture, and many other developments occurs during that period, and particularly the use of improved bearing materials, a proper scientific studies taking place about wear and friction. So tribology means a proper study of friction and wear and proper utilization of lubrication or wear resistance materials or bearings, etc., to reduce the friction, indirectly to reduce the failure, finally to avoid the fracture. Clear? This is what about the broad history of tribology, how it is step by step improved. Atta ಆಯ್ತೇನ್ರಪ್ಪ?
So,
So 1960 is called as Industrial Revolution. At that time, there are a lot of subjects were invented, like computer science, like your machine design, composite materials, and same like a tribology. Okay, ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತೇನ್ರಪ್ಪ? And yesterday, I also told that tribology is it is not a single subject. It is an combination of or interdisciplinary. It need some other subjects to discover or redefine the concept. Like, so tribology as a subject, if you see a tribology as a subject, we need a different subjects like chemistry, physics, surface topology, contact mechanism, material science, thermodynamics, mathematics, and mechanical engineering. So mechanical engineering, we already know that loads, stress, strain, okay, deformation. This is what the common things happens in the uh, tribology. That is what the two meeting surfaces. That is what purely mechanical. Mathematics means for the equations and calculations we need a mathematics. For the material science, the property of a material, the behavior of the material, characteristics of the material, that's what we are going to study. So that we need a material science. The contact mechanism, that is the rolling contact, sliding contact, whatever the contact, there is a lot of different types of contacts, point of contact. So that is what important. And surface topology, whether the roughness, waviness, obstructions, smoothness, whatever, that is what the surface topology. Physics and chemistry, that is also we need for the lubricants and lubrication process. Okay, so if you see tribology as a subject, and some of the importance of tribology. ಯಾಕೆ tribology is important? If tribology, if there is no tribology, what happens? Okay, importance of tribology or industrial significance. It is also called as the tribology majorly used in the industries. That's why it is called as industrial significance or importance of tribology. So I'm just giving you one small example. Example one, it's a cam. You already studied in your fourth semester, okay, in the com subject or in the dom subject, the cam, follower, etc. You already know how they are operating, how the mechanism is operating. Cams are used to transmit rotary motion to reciprocating motion, just to convert one type of motion into another type of motion. So there is a contact between the follower and cam, then only it will transmit. If there is a contact, then only it will transmit the motion. If there is no contact, there is no transmission of motion, and there is no friction, there is no wear. But we need a contact between the two surfaces. If the two surfaces are contact, obviously induce the friction. The friction will induce the wear. Here also same thing. The cam and the follower, they have to engage, they have to contact. Because of contact and engage, there is a friction, there is a jerk. That jerk causes the pits. You just observe the round mark, a red color round mark, it is called as a pits commonly. Okay, pits formation. And these pits formation, okay, if continuously occurs, there is an accumulation of the fitting and finally it will leads to fitting failure, the component going to failure. And this can be avoided, or this can be reduced or prevent by using a proper lubrication. A proper lubrication if you use, we can avoid this pits formation and also to avoid the failure. This is a one simple common example. Second thing is journal bearing. That is what we are going to discuss in the next modules. Journal bearing. What is journal bearing? What is hydrodynamic? What is hydrostatic? That is what we are going to discuss. Journal means shaft. Journal means shaft. Bearing. The bearing which is used to support the shaft is called as journal bearing. Okay. So in the journal bearing, first there are two surfaces. One is a journal surface inside, which is in contact with the shaft, and outer surface it is contact with the bearing. Okay, bearing material or bearing, and inner surface with a shaft. So in this, there is a clearance between the shaft and the bearing. If the clearance increases, if more the clearance, it will reduce the load carrying capacity. So the clearance is very small, and the clearance is completely filled by a lubricants. If the clearance is very less, there is a direct contact between the bearing and the shaft, and that bearing material will start wear off. And this can be reduced by using proper lubrication. That is what there are different types of concepts or principles of lubrication: thin film, fluid film lubrication, perfect lubrication, so on, that we will discuss in the next module. And multi-row roller bearings, it is also a type of bearing. Here also we can commonly see that because of there is a direct contact, there is a direct wear of the material. This is also we can reduce by using the proper lubrications. Next, gates. Gates is also used to transmit the power from one point to another point. Gear means we needed two gates. They have to engage, they have to contact between the teeth. But once they are continuously contact, there is a wear, there is a friction that causes the wear. Here also, the excessive stress, the accumulation of stress may cause the failure. And these can be reduced by using the proper tribological solution. Okay, so these are some common examples. That is what we are going to see. So by seeing this, okay, so we know that tribological problems are very important. Tribological problems are very important. By proper studying of tribological problems as well as a proper solution for tribology may avoids the failure. Okay. Every mechanism, we already know that every mechanism includes two mating surfaces. A no interaction means the no energy loss, there is no friction, and there is no motion. Where there is a two mating surfaces, there is a friction. If there is a friction, there is a wear. Finally, it ends with a failure. This is what the tribological cycle. Okay, it's a problem actually, tribological problem. At the same time, we have to go with the tribological solutions. There is no mechanism or no machines and no equipments that is not affected by tribological factor. Means every machine, every equipment or every mating surface must and should undergo tribological factor. It is also estimated that nearly 70% of the failure in the mechanical components or machine components are due to because of tribological causes. Andre nearly 70% of the world machine failure or component failure, it is just because of tribological causes. And also a rough estimate says that one third of energy, the one third of world energy resource appears as friction in one or another form, and most of these appears as a waste. Friction andrenu, it's a waste. So in the world, whatever the energy we are generating, in that one third of energy is simply wasting in the form of friction. It is have no use. So this is what the survey says, that wastage as well as failure. The 70% of the failure, it is just because of tribological causes, and one third of energy, it is just wasted because of tribological factors. ನಾವೀಗ ಸೇವ್ ಮಾಡೋದಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಇಫ್ ಯು ಸೇವ್ ಸಮ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇಂಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್. ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್? ಹಲೋ ಹಲೋ
Yes, sir.
if you no need to generate energy, so hero energy na if you save means it will increase. ಈಗ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ 100 ರೂಪೀಸ್ ಇದೆ, ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ 50 ರೂಪೀಸ್ ನೀವು ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಸೇವಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ 50. ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ಸೇವಿಂಗ್ಸ್, ನೀವು ಮತ್ತೆ 10 ರೂಪೀಸ್ ಇಸ್ಕೊಳೋ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಯು ಜಸ್ಟ್ reduce your expenses 50 to 20 rupees. If you reduce your expense from 50 to 20 rupees, 30 rupees save aita. So what is your total save? 80 rupees. Nodi, without any investing you save. Correct? The same concept in the tribology also we are implementing. If you want to effectively utilize the tribological solution in the power generation, we can reduce the wastage one third to somewhat very less. So awaga save agiro energy, it is profit to us. It is just because of effective utilization of tribology. Machine components allo aste. Just take an example of your bike. So nim bike tagantira, so how many years you are going to use that bike? On 20 years use ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ? That is what the efficiency. Okay, ಸೊ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬೈಕ್ ಏನಾದರೂ 1 or 2 ಇಯರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಫ್ರ್ಯಾಕ್ಚರ್ ಕಾಂಪೋನೆಂಟ್ ಫೇಲ್ಯೂರ್ ಆದರೆ, ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಬರಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ, ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಟ್? ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಟೋಟಲ್ ಫೇಲ್ಯೂರ್. ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ಯು ಆರ್ ಟೈಮ್ಲಿ ಯು ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಚೇಂಜ್ ದ ಇಂಜಿನ್ ಆಯಿಲ್, ಯು ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಡೂ ದ ಜನರಲ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸಸ್. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ದ ಮೇಂಟೆನೆನ್ಸ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಟ್ರೈಬಾಲಜಿಕಲ್ ಮೇಂಟೆನೆನ್ಸ್. ನೀವು ಅದನ್ನು ಮಾಡದೇ ಇದ್ದರೆ, ಸಿಂಪ್ಲಿ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಡೇ ಇಂದ ಒಂದು 2 ಇಯರ್ಸ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿ ರನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ? ಇಂಜಿನ್ ಸೀಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಯು ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ರೈಡ್ ಯುವರ್ ಬೈಕ್. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಫೇಲ್ಯೂರ್. ನೀವು ಅದನ್ನು ಮೇಂಟೆನೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ, ಓಕೆ, ಜನರಲ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದರೆ, ಅಪ್ ಟು 20 ಇಯರ್ಸ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಈಸಿಲಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ಬೈಕ್. ಅಂದರೆ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಗಿವನ್ ಎ ಬೈಕ್ ಆಸ್ ಎ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್. You can implement same thing to the machine tools, lathe, drilling, milling, whatever the machine tools, okay, all machine tools aste we need a regular maintenance, that is with effective tribological solutions. Then only we can reduce the failure. Artha aita why it is very so important? The awareness of the subject, that is most important. The awareness of the subject, it's a very important. The identification of the tribological problem. First ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂದರೆ, we have to identify the tribological problem and their solutions can given rise to significant savings. Thus the importance of friction reduction and wear control can well imagined for economical resource and long-term reliability. In 1969, according to the Just, the one journalist, according to that, the UK could save approximately 500 billion. 500 billion here. You can use 5, you can save 500 billion. So in the UK, they made a one survey. By effective utilization of tribology, they managed to save 500 million pounds. Okay, it's one example. Second example, in 1976, they estimated that 11% total saving in annual US energy consumption is equivalent to some 16 billion US dollar by an expenditure in the research and development of an estimated 24 million dollars. See that by using effective utilization of tribology, that in USA they saved nearly 11% of the total annual energy, that is nearly equal to 16 billion US dollars. That much of they saved. The analysis of the failure of boilers tubes indicates about one third of all occurrence were due to the erosion. Erosion is a common factor in the boilers, common failure that we can reduce by using effective tribological solutions. And in the UK also they nearly same that nearly 468 to 700 million pounds per annum they can use by effective principles of tribology in their national energy savings. By all these, we can conclude that the development of country is directly depends on tribology. It is a one factor, it is a one part. The overall country development depends on so many factors. In that, our tribology is also one major contributing factor. If we use effective tribological solution, we can indirectly help our country to grow in a better manner. Clear? So economical condition of the country is directly depends on the tribological solution. If we use proper tribological solution, we can improve the savings and we can increase the economical condition of the country as well as industry as well as individual person. Okay. By using this, there is a lot of impact on the tribology so that we can save a lot of money, we can increase the components life, and also we can directly contribute the economical growth of country. Okay, some of the examples of tribology. The first example, you can clearly see that the friction between the graphite, that is what the pencil, what you are using to write on the paper, on that we have to apply some friction. If there is a friction, then only we can able to write. That is a positive type of friction. And friction in the bicycle brake. The brake creates the friction. It stops the rotation of the wheel. That is what the positive friction. It's in the very small quantity. When the friction is helpful, ಯಾವಾಗ friction help ಆಗುತ್ತೆ? Brakes, walking. Say if you want to walk, if the smooth surface, very polished surface, can you able to walk? ವಾಕ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗುತ್ತಾ ಆಯಿಲಿ ಸರ್ಫೇಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ? ನೋ ಚಾನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ನೀವು ವಾಕ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ ಶುಡ್ ನೀಡ್ ಎ ಫ್ರಿಕ್ಷನ್. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ರಿಕ್ಷನ್. Wheels, writing, eating, living, these are all some common examples what we need positive friction, but it is in the very small quantity. So this is unhelpful friction. Idu namage we don't want. We have to reduce the wear of the wheel, tires, okay, brake liners. These are all, see, these tires are worn out because of a heavy friction between the surface and the wheel, so causes the surface to wear off. Some of the applications for maintaining, for machine parts, gates, bays, cams, these are all examples of tribology that we will discuss in depth in the first module. So this is one example how we reduce the friction. The lubricant, it's a one surface, it's a machine part, machine tool, the machining of the one object. So tool and the workpiece come into contact, induces a lot of heat, friction. To reduce that, we are introducing the lubricant. These are all bearings. Okay, by using the cams, we can reduce the friction. Thank you. So any doubts?